Welcome to TSW. Today we are going to dive deep into the future of energy with Gaurav, who is founder of Lico Materials. We will uncover how they are revolutionizing battery circularity and powering a sustainable future for tomorrow. Gaurav, sir, thank you for being with us. And before we dive into Lico Materials, could you take us back to your roots? What ignited your passion for sustainability and circular economy? If you can, just give a walkthrough of it because it's a very different kind of a subject where it's usually not the typical money making or the headline making industry, right? At the moment, like usually if you compare it with other industries. So how did you reach? What was your life's trajectory which you brought you till here?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. We founded Lyco in 2021. I think the objective was to see how we can create wealth from waste. My background being a mineral or commodity trader has pretty much led me to what I believe are the new energy metals or transition metals that we are calling, and some countries, including India, now calling them critical minerals. Of course, critical minerals have been only been classified over the last 1 or 2 years, but in 2021, there was very limited data out there or information out there on lithium-ion battery recycling anywhere outside of China. So I think the idea was, how can we educate ourselves? How can we make a business plan? How do we believe that this opportunity really even exists? I think after working on it for almost half the year, I came to a conclusion that this is something that I wanted to do. And then, of course, having nobody really from the industry or background, or not unable to visit China or the Chinese to visit us due to COVID, there was a lot of calculated risks, I would say, on our part to get into this business. As the business progressed and we realized more and more, which we still do every day, I feel like it's a continuous learning journey in this business. I still, it validates the reason of coming into this business every single day. So I'm proud to say that, we're happy with how things have gone with our progress, and we're happy with how we have positioned Lyco as a global brand with at least our customers worldwide. Now, coming back to what what we're trying to achieve really with Lyco is looking at how we can maximize potential from waste, which is what battery used lithium batteries were classified. Today, I think we have come to a point where, as I said, that they're critical minerals. So I don't like to call them as waste anymore, because they are what they are, critical minerals.
So help me understand, like, you also mentioned China and when you started. So nowadays, if you see when we talk about renewable energy and there is the critical rare earth minerals, so it seems like, China has some sort of a monopoly on this, right? And it is directly or indirectly impacting our EV players. So can you elaborate what is going on? Like China कर क्या रहा है हमारे साथ या दुनिया के साथ और हम पर इस पे क्या इसका अफेक्ट हो रहा है मतलब अगर आप उसको समझा सकते हैं इंडस्ट्री का एक मोटा मोटी समझा सके हमें अगर तो
Definitely. So I think China very early on identified what is the next resource or natural resource that they can tap, because obviously, oil was not an option for them. I would say if you go back 20 years, China had a clear roadmap on where they wanted to go, and they've been extremely successful in getting there. Now, all of us, have been focusing on other things, whether it's India, Europe, Australia, the US, while China has been building this entire ecosystem. The challenge is all of us now want to catch up with China in 1 year, 2 years, not realizing what they have done for 20 years. They have had a very clear objective with goals. They've had government backing. They've had funding. All the companies that we see today, CATL, BYD, Goshen, any of these names that we today know about are recent companies. None of them are 100-year-old companies. correct? That tells us that they have brought to life the government plan. Of course, they got support from their government and still continue to do so. But that tells us that there is a very clear synergy between public and private. I think that is what any region needs, whether it's India, USA, Europe, whoever it is. We need a lot of uh, public and private partnership. We need government, to not only focus on these sectors, but actually put money on the table, right? We have seen the government understands that these are critical, right? They recognize it. They have made a PLI scheme for ACC, for cell manufacturing. That PLI scheme needs to now go down the supply chain on anode, cathode, electrolyte, precursor, all the way to recycling and materials that can be recovered from recycling. I think all of us today understand the importance of these metals because we don't have them in India. There is no cobalt, nickel, lithium that is mined in India. So we are definitely dependent on imports. Even if those metals or minerals are mined in other parts of the world, China has complete dominance on processing those ores because of how far back they had gotten into the system. So, while all countries and regions are categorizing this as critical minerals and trying to keep them within their country, the eventual fact is that China is so far ahead than anybody else that we don't have a choice. Now, the next thing I see is rare earth, which is a recent thing that you're seeing. But it's the same problem. I would say, at least in batteries, maybe 92, 93% dominance. In rare earth, I would say China has 100% dominance or 99, which makes it that much more difficult for us to compete with them because they have a roadmap, they have the vision, they have the scale, they have the know-how. So we are all late to the party, but that doesn't mean that we should not focus on it.
Of course, and I totally agree with this because that there is this realization, and I think, and for the first time in our community, like of all age groups, young, middle-aged, and everybody is asking especially the workforce community, why we are lagging behind in all these things. When it comes to AI, we are not among the first ones. Now it comes to EVs, right? So when you mentioned, like, that China had planned it 20 years ahead and 30 years ahead, do you think our policies right now are much more reactionary rather than, again, setting up the path for the future?
I think so, but I don't think that it's a bad thing. I just think that we need speed and we need, constant participation and we need a very clear deliverable roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Talking, is great. Discussing with industry. What I like is that there's a lot of discussion between government and industry today that may have not happened few decades ago. So I'm happy that happens, but we need to take it beyond. We need action points with timelines, and we need to hit those timelines. The only other country today that can compete with China for that scale of volume and unit operations, cost, etc., talent is India. Everybody is looking at us. There is a clear opportunity for us to be there on the table alongside China. I don't say that it's an easy path, and I don't say that it's going to happen in 1 or 2 years. It may probably take a decade. But the fact is that everything needs to, hit milestones on time for us to get there. And I think that's where we are missing the boat a bit. I also think the most important part that we need to fulfill our potential is that we still have good relationships with each of those regions, whether it's the US, whether it's Europe, Australia, Japan. We need to look at government to government tie-ups with them. As a business, we go to all those regions and try and work with them. But it's a very different ball game when government to government discussions are held. And I always cite that we need to look at South Korea as an example. They're a very small nation, but they have fantastic government to government relationships with each of those countries that I mentioned, which means material can flow to them very easily. but material flowing to India is complicated.
Yeah, and this is one of the things which I think a lot of people are now also speaking about. But you spoke about government backing, which of course where China has advantage and everything, and we see that at least now we see that government is also, as you said, taking some initiative. There are a lot of conversations happening. There is at policy level, strategic thinking. There is a lot of conversation also happening. But one thing which if you remember, like one of the ministers spoke about like hey, our Indian companies are not, they are doing quick commerce, e-commerce, but they're not doing deep tech, right? And if you look at the entire VC ecosystem, right, the entire focus is on just very quick commerce and all these very low hanging fruits, but nobody's investing in so deep tech, like even like your Lico material, the kind of things you are developing. You see that VCs are very shy, it might have increased after that kind of a nudge, but still overall the ecosystem isn't like that big. Like we do, if we want to have like someone to, if we want to have like Tesla of our own, we want to have SpaceX of our own, then we need investors to also pull in that much of money. But you see, there is a lot of reluctance over there.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the private equity or VC firms would want to see more clarity. They want to wait and watch, things like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why valuations are where they are, because there is a risk and reward clear theory. There is greater risk, but there are greater rewards in a set business. If we were a steel manufacturer or a biscuit manufacturer, I think I could not promise them what we can today. But I also agree that yes, there are some parts that are regulation, etc., which the government is working on, and we are pleased with the way things are going in certain ways, because the Ministry of Mines has recently announced a recycling incentive plan that they want to roll out, which helps us greatly. um, However, I think that at the end of the day, VCs and Ps should come in and help the ecosystem. Now, they need to differentiate real recyclers from those who are maybe telling a story. So I understand some apprehensions. Some of the failures of the recyclers in the West has not really helped us. Some of the big names in Europe and America have, gone out of business over the last 6 or 9 months. But we must understand that recycling in Asia is very different. Recycling is a unit economic cost, business, a very low, unit economic operations cost that is going to help you. That is only possible in Asia. It's extremely difficult to do this business in the West because it is so, manpower driven. So that's a huge factor in considering that with all the money in the world, in the US and Europe, those companies still did not survive. But whereas companies like ours in India have potential to thrive.
And this brings me to what Lico does, right? And there is what you do is also deal with a lot of battery circularity. First of all, it will be great if you can help simplify ये circularity होता क्या है? You know, पहले तो ये समझ आया क्योंकि it's slightly jargonish, I understand, and I hope the people will, if you can, simplify it for them. And the second thing is, I want to understand what was the problem, in the current status, right, which you are trying to, figure it, address it through your platform. Say, for instance, what I know is like, at some, like from very cursory understanding I have of batteries operating, because at some point their life cycle starts to reduce and they are disposed, right? But with recycling, how does it work? Like, say, only battery I know much slightly better than other kind of batteries is like lithium ion batteries, right? And so it will be great if you can just explain what is battery circularity, and also help me understand like what are the current pain points of the in the given such the batteries which we use, and how do you, where does the Lico comes into the picture?
Sure, it's a good question. So from the time that batteries are no longer suitable for use, they come back to a recycler like us. We evaluate these batteries that come from electric vehicles, for example, from two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, and buses. We test these, we dismantle them, discharge them, we test these cells down to a cell level. If the cells can be reused, then we put them into an energy storage application, which is the second life part of our business or refurbishment. And if they are not able to, be used for second life, then they go for recycling. Once they are recycled, the major product that comes out at the end is a powder called black mass, which is essentially a combination of anode and cathode. This is a mechanical separation process. The next step is could be a hydrometallurgy process, which is a chemical process, could be a pyro process, which is a basically in layman terms a burning process. The recovery from there is for lithium, cobalt, nickel in the salt form. That's how it went into the cell originally. This is the recycler's path. The next step is a precursor company that would take the cobalt, nickel, manganese, lithium, right, and make a precursor out of it, and give it to the cathode company. The cathode company would make a cathode powder, cathode foil, and then give it to a cell manufacturer. The cell manufacturer takes the anode and cathode, puts it together, and makes the cell. And then he gives it to the battery manufacturer who's making the battery. This is the entire supply chain. Now, in India, we have just started cell manufacturing. Up till now, the battery manufacturers were importing cells from China, Japan, Korea, and assembling these making these batteries here and selling them. So we have the battery person. We have just started the cell person. We have the recycler at the end, but we're missing anode, cathode, precursor guys in the middle, which means that even if you are recovering battery grade material from black mass, battery grade lithium that can go back into a new lithium cell, it is not actually going into that because the ecosystem in India does not exist, which means that we need to work with global players to ensure that this goes back into batteries to ensure circularity. The objective of Lyco was always to ensure circularity. The whole point of the business was to be part of a battery circular supply chain. We don't want to recover material and put it into agriculture and paint and different kind of industries. So we work with global players who can recover that at battery grade. Unfortunately, in India, we don't see that we are at that level of battery grade recovery yet. So there are many parts of the supply chain that are missing in India to ensure circularity. Now, they exist outside India, like our partners in South Korea. But it will take us some time to get there because many of the players would have to come in with very high commitments of capex, 2,000, 5,000, 6,000 crores, backed with the fact that they don't have a guaranteed offtake buyer. Now, the cell companies that have given that received the PLI scheme, one of the conditions is to localize their raw materials. So they need to buy anode and cathode in India. But today they're a bit hesitant to give an offtake to anode and cathode players in India. When they are willing to take that offtake, then the anode and cathode guy is going to go and set up the plant. Imagine if you have to spend 5,000 crores and set up a plant without having a buyer and without having any government incentive. So that's how risky that is.
And also, it seems slightly, complicated also the entire process because it's like a big puzzle and you have to fit in parts, right? Which India is currently, obviously, you're saying that the ecosystem is not existing at the moment. So, help me understand, like, do you think such an ecosystem, like equivalent to say where this structure is like in its complete stage, right? And the processes are proper. Do you think India will reach there in any time sooner, like say 5 years or 6 years?
I'm very confident that India will get there in 4 to 5 years. But a lot has to go right. I think there are companies that are willing to put money down, are willing to commit, right? Are are willing to take that risk. I think the talent exists. I think that appetite business for that business exists. All we need is, you know, some we need obviously we need some participation and help from the government. There's no question about that to build the entire ecosystem. And all I'm saying is that we need pure focus and deliverable timelines. If we do that, I have no doubt in my mind that we can achieve that. We are seeing other countries in Southeast Asia that have done it. And I think that India is the only country who can really achieve that at scale. We can be a battery mineral supplier and processor for the world, not only for our country. But that's the kind of vision we need to have, and we need to move at that kind of speed.
And right now, that is not happening for sure. Right now, it's not like clearly we are still reacting to things, right? One thing which I wanted to ask was like, while what you were doing, and I want to understand how do you achieve that kind of precision in terms of recovery rate? You know, so like what
Yeah.
is the process? Like, what makes the tech better? What is it that what you're doing is different, maybe as compared to competitors?
I think, it's been a huge learning curve for us. Every single year, every single quarter, there have been improvements in our process, updates, upgrades, uh, and that has and that has happened only purely by making mistakes. Very frankly, we have made a lot of mistakes, learned from our mistakes. See, there is no one kind of battery, right? Especially in India, where an OEM is not giving you a 100% kind of raw material guarantee or one kind of raw material. So if we see in Europe or in the States, we see BMW partners with so and so, GM partners with so and so. That doesn't happen in India, right? OEMs work with different recyclers, sometimes work with some for a bit, then change. So there is no guarantee of the kind of raw material that we are going to get as a recycler, which means that we need to constantly adapt, evolve, and be agile so that our systems, whether it's our machinery, our processes, our SOPs, keep adapting to new kinds of raw material. Now that we are importing raw material, we get raw material from outside that also does not exist in our country. So it's a constant learning curve. So I would say that our strength is our people, is our processes, is learning from our mistakes and ensuring that every month on month, quarter on quarter, we keep pushing our team to see how much more we can recover. As a recycler, recovery is your only goal. Every single drop, every single gram that you recover more than the next recycler will only make you more profitable than the next recycler.
So you are speaking about profitability also, and I kept wondering like do you think it's very cost intensive, to recycle and to recover and recycle, especially in the this segment? It is going to be very expensive thing to do so.
Yeah, because it's labor intensive. Because you're getting different kinds of packs. How do you open those? First point is you have to dismantle the pack. Only then you know whether you can use it for second life or recycling or whatever your next move is. But
Mhm.
first you need to open that pack. You're getting different kind of packs every single day from different kind of OEMs. OEMs also have multiple packs. If you go to a Tata showroom, there are different kind of EV cars there. So the packs are going to be different in all those.
Mhm.
Some models have multiple variants, will have different kind of packs. So you can imagine so many different kind of packs. You
Mhm.
cannot have a standardized or automated way of dismantling, right? So you are
Mhm.
still trying to understand how to open those packs, disassemble them, discharge them. So yes, it is labor intensive. I think that recycling is a profitable business, and it will be a profitable business. Yes, it comes down to at what scale you operate, at what volumes you operate. So we are happy with where we are today because we are looking at operating, I mean, from 2022 when we started and operating 20 or processing 20 or 40 tons a month to today processing about over 400 tons a month. We're very happy with the progress we've made. And I think at that scale, it starts to make sense.
So if I have to give you a very hypothetical situation, say for instance, right now you're spending 100 rupees, okay, and what if you had the local infrastructure which you desire? How much the cost would go down?
I think a large part of the cost is also reverse logistics. So I think that is something that we have now needed to focus on and understand how we can bring our costs down. As the quantum of raw material in India was smaller 2 years ago or 3 years ago, uh, I think OEMs also demanded a higher price. And I think the logistics impact was also large. As the quantum of material and volume of material is increasing, I think we can rationalize, costs down to what we think is affordable.
Mhm.
OEMs also, I think, are coming online to understand that, you know, uh, our constant battle with them is that this is not a revenue source for you. Please do not try to make money off of us. But, of course, it's a constant tug and pull on coming to a price that they accept.
But also, do you think that you have timed the launch of your product? While of course there was a lockdown when you were, I think it was the peak of the lockdown when you started out, right? But if you look at the market today, like, everybody knows what is a EV, right? Tesla is here almost now. And there is, of course, like chats of having local data centers and everything, right? We want to have like, a lot of battery powered devices are there, like especially in automobile sector you see three-wheelers, all kinds of this. So do you think the kind of work you do is now has closely aligned with this existing boom, and it's helping you?
Yeah, most definitely. I think EV adoption from when we started, I mean, when it was just an idea in 21, forming the company in 21, starting up our factory end of 22. I mean, what kind of material did we get in 2022 and 23 and versus what we're getting today? Of course, no comparison.
Mhm.
So we're glad that in our country, EV adoption is jumping at the rate that it is, because that only means that there will be more raw material for us in the coming future.
Mhm.
It's also not limited to mobility. I think energy storage is the big part.
And what would be the can you elaborate a little bit more about energy storage? What would it look like?
So looking at battery energy storage, I think looking at what India's plan is, or any of the, I mean, maybe a Niti Aayog report that is published, I think by 2032, you're seeing that energy storage um, deployment in India will use more batteries than all the electric vehicles sold in India. So that tells you that, energy storage is probably the big elephant in the room that we have not really looked at. But of course, right now we're just looking at how to deploy those batteries. By that time, they will start coming to end of life.
Also, do you think that, when like like you spoke about the governments doing the chip, like you spoke about PLI as well, right? And do you think that such partnerships are gonna help you also in this space, right? To get some sort of like people to maybe build much more, like you see the Make in India campaign, right? But they want to do a lot more manufacturing over here. So do you think say for instance ओला ओला है या फिर कोई भी ईवी मेकर है and which is setting up like giant EV making company or factory over here, they choose to come back to this segment, and they want to like start doing manufacturing of all these things. So do you think it will indirectly or directly will be a much more a good thing for you?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot we are seeing in India in terms of, in first when we started seeing electronics, right? When we saw Apple move here, I think Oppo, Vivo, there's quite a lot of electronic personal device electronic manufacturing that has come up in India over the last maybe 5 years. You're seeing the same with electric vehicles as well. You've seen BYD enter India. We've seen VinFast enter India. We're talking about Tesla, which have just set up their first showroom, but eventuality suggests that they might set up a manufacturing unit in India. So I think the government's vision of, or the Prime Minister's vision of 30% electrification of all fleets by 2030 is in motion. And I think that they are, they are leading by example. Today, the largest purchaser of EVs is probably the government. If you see, all bus tenders across the country are all electric buses.
Mhm.
So that tells us that the narrative, that the government, is focused on, they are out to deliver that.
But a lot of delivery will also depend upon if we have the access to the natural resources, right? So all these materials which we were discussing in the during the beginning of our conversation. Can you help us, like, if someone had to, like, I know, for instance, I'll give you one example, is like there was a company called Log9 which experimented with graphene powered uh, tech, right? And then someone, right now, there is a lot of conversation around hydrogen powered cars, for instance. So, do you think that at some point, India will be able to, reduce dependence upon of importing all these things?
So, well, first of all, we haven't really found any of these metals in India. I know there's been some discussion about lithium discovery in Jammu and Kashmir, but we don't know if that is of a grade that can be used, or what are the mining
Mhm.
capabilities are, or if it's, if there has been any studies done. I'm not too sure. Anyway, the point is that even if it is true, mining will take 8 to 10 years. So
Mhm.
in the near term, what is the solution? That's where our company like us is operating in, right?
Mhm.
That is exactly what we're saying, that recycling ensures that that material that would have been lost forever, that would
Mhm.
have gone into landfills, is being reused again and again. So
Correct.
if we have that entire ecosystem in India, then those minerals will forever stay in India, correct? So the idea is, the focus has to be on developing the entire supply chain. And if you are successful in doing that, any mineral that enters your country remains there, because it can be reused again and again and again and
Mhm.
again. Today, I think Ministry of Mines, the way they're looking at is, how can we go and acquire mines on long-term leases? Like, there is a company that they formed called Kabil, right, which is talking about mines in South America, and how they can get access to lithium and process it themselves for a while, which is a very intelligent, very progressive move. But for us, I think the starting point, the bottom of the ladder rather, is recycling. But from there, let's look at that entire supply chain and keep those within our country. Until that happens, we will always, the minerals will have to leave our country. There's no choice.
But if, and also if you look at, like, I think during the COVID time when we started speaking about, and I think there was a conversation about going carbon neutrality and everything. The fact remains that India still is a very coal dependent in terms of when it comes to creating energy. And while we all want to be, like, recycling, we all are for recyclable things and EVs and everything, but coal still continues to power our electricity. So, do you think that, how will you ensure, that how Lico can come into this kind of picture where energy, when it comes to energy usage, the typical unit, say residential or commercial or industrial, do you think Lico or your company can also play some part over there, reducing dependence upon coal?
Well, for that, I mean, I would say that the real fossil fuel that we should be replacing is petrol. The import bill for our country for petrol is the highest. I think the government's focus really on electrification is to reduce that import bill. And our point is that, look, till date, we may have processed end of life batteries, to power more than 15,000 electric cars. And by
Mm.
2027, we're saying we're going to have enough, we would have recycled enough batteries to power more than 200,000 electric cars. And if we were to replace that, if we can remove 200,000 cars of ICE engines from the road and put electric cars instead, I think you're saving enough CO2 emissions uh, that more than 30 million trees absorb. So I think, that's the plan. That's what we are aiming to do. Now, of course, power generation today in India is also coal-based, but I think we are one of the fastest countries in the world moving towards solar adoption. The rates for solar in India are the lowest in the world. I mean, I think it's a great initiative. I think we're 5 years ahead of what was the commitment by Prime Minister Modi. So I think when we look at those things, we are well on our way.
Mhm. You also, so one of the things which, when we start talking about alternatives, and I remember it's about how do you manage the wastage, waste management, it becomes very important for especially with such high chemical products, right? And also the hazardous chemical that comes out. Usually, what we see is that in India, it's very liberal. People are throwing things in river, right? And polluting our soil and everything. What is your focus like in this area? Like, what do you think you can help, you can chip in and maybe like really bring the focus back on sustainability?
Sustainability is at the core of what we're doing. I mean, that is the whole point of being a recycler. I think that now, with the government's focus and assistance in recycling, not only in batteries, but across the sector, I think introducing EPR, making waste management rules, understanding, accepting, addressing those issues, that's great. We feel that it's a huge positive. We do feel that implementation of all those things are challenging. We find a lot of challenges, at every point. But we also understand that our country is a complex country. It's not so straightforward. Look at our population, look at the diversity. It's not so easy it's in fact, I would say it's very easy for me to sit in my room and judge that this doesn't happen and that doesn't happen. But it's very different for us to get down on the ground and roll up your sleeves, get them dirty and do work themselves. We have a we have a collection mechanism. Yes, it's an informal collection mechanism, but it works. It's been doing that for decades. There is a Kabadiwala network. There is a system that operates very efficiently, but not within our economic system. We should bring them into our economic system. That is how I think that we can, be maybe be more efficient.
So one of the things which always comes to my mind whenever I used to talk about recyclable things, that its quality will not be good. Okay, it will not be same as the older one, especially refurbished. Say I have used a few refurbished smartphones. The experience isn't really the same. So do you come across like such apprehensions? What ये recycled है, refurbished है, पता
Definitely.
नहीं ये चलेगा भी कि नहीं चलेगा, 2 महीने चलेगा, 1 महीने चलेगा. At the end of the day, while it is good to have a recyclable product, but चलना भी चाहिए. So आप मुझे समझाएंगे वो कैसे होती है चीज?
So I think the best example would be the refurbishment part of our business, because when we get when we are taking out cells from an electric vehicle and then making an energy storage pack, we are offering warranties on that. We are offering life cycles on those. So it is a very clear commitment from us on how long we think this battery will work, because we are backing it by warranty.
Correct.
I think that is a differentiator. When we go into the market, you're right. Many people say, ये तो मतलब पुराने बैटरी से आपने नया कैसे बना दिया, चलेगा नहीं. तो इसलिए हम अपना नाम डाल रहे हैं, वारंटी डाल रहे हैं. If we don't put our name, if sell it by any random name, I understand that, but we're willing to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we were in Europe, I
Mm-hmm.
would be getting paid a premium because it's a recycled or refurbished product, right? Because it's a
Correct.
green product.
Agree.
But that's just our thought process. That's our culture.
Also, there is this. Also, what are the other misconception? Like performance is one thing I know. जैसे अभी भी ईवी कार्स लेते हैं तो सबसे पहले उनको वो माइलेज एंजाइटी रहती है कि यार कितनी देर चलेगी नहीं. So what are the other
In,
misconceptions you have heard?
in India, an average person drives 30 kilometers a day. Range anxiety is the least of our problems. Where are we going? I mean, we're not, look at the traffic, look at the roads. आप कहाँ जा रहे हो? 30-40 किलोमीटर से ज्यादा कौन चला रहा है?
Correct, correct.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Many of my own friends and relatives tell me that. But I tell them that what's this? There is no range anxiety. Where is the range? That's my
Mhm.
first question. Now, I don't. I think most of the manufacturers who are selling electric vehicles have done a great job. They're coming, setting up charging points in your own house. Charging infrastructure across the country will take time, but it's happening, and it's happening at a very good pace. But it takes time, look, given the size of the country and et cetera, et cetera. Um, we feel that cars is in that space. Now, two-wheelers and three-wheelers, you're seeing the adoption month-on-month numbers. I mean, it's great, right? So they don't have this charging infrastructure or range anxiety issue, and they probably a three-wheeler does probably more kilometers than a personal car does, right? So obviously they've understood that it's. I don't think range is a challenge, but that's what the general thought process is.
So, say if you in next 3 4 years, what are the kind of diversification which we are gonna see from Lico? Because one thing which I wanted to add, like, if you look at the kind of consumption that is happening because of a lot of AI generated stuff is happening, so there is obviously the kind of energy requirement has gone, I don't know, exponentially. So what are the kind of, do you think will you diversify into these kind of energies solutions?
So for our second life products, absolutely. We think that how can we reduce dependency on the grid? How can we provide more reliability? How can we provide solutions that we're currently doing already with various industries, including our own facility, providing backup instead of a diesel generator,
Mhm.
ensuring that we do not use diesel, that we do not use polluting things like diesel, right? Making energy usage more efficient, ensuring that we can charge our batteries during non-peak hours and then use the battery rather than the grid during peak hours, which helps us in saving money, of course, but also peak shaving. I think these are important parts. As dependency on electric vehicles and products will go higher, we need to also look how we can balance the grid. That's not, I mean, we can't just increase our grid to 2x or 3x in 2 months or 5 months or 1 year, right? It takes time. Hence, I think battery energy storage is extremely critical.
So, before I let you go, I want to have a small questions, which I would want you to, like, again, it's like a, like, like last में वो dictionary के book के होता है ना कि यार these are the words which you have to remember.
Please.
So the keyword of this our conversation was one of the things which stood out was black mass. ये black mass को अगर बिल्कुल ही आसान शब्दों में किसको समझाना हो तो कैसे समझाएंगे?
Black mass is like black powder. It looks exactly like black powder. It is a combination of anode and cathode, plus and minus. After you remove in a battery, there'll be plastic, there'll be copper, there'll be aluminum, there'll be so many
Mhm.
different things. So after the removal of plastic, iron, copper, aluminum, what you're left with is black mass. That is the black powder.
What is, again, if you have to explain in say one line, what is, or two lines maybe, battery circularity.
Ensuring that what you are recovering goes back into the battery supply chain and not in other supply chains. Only then you are truly circular.
And how safe is doing this? How safe or maybe how profitable, whatever, whichever you can choose.
Profitable, hopefully soon. Safe, it is. We're working with lithium ion batteries. They are flammable, they are dangerous. But if handled incorrectly or not in a defined SOP or safe manner, if you handle them well, they are absolutely fine. But it really comes down to how well your people are, um, you know, dismantling them on house. As long as they're following the safety protocols, it's okay. The minute you want to start cutting corners, I think then you're playing with people's lives.
Um, the performance of a product which has been recovered and recycled is in terms of percentage on par with the new one? How much percent you would say?
So I would say the used cells that we are using in our battery packs, yes, they will be offered at lower cycles than the brand new batteries for obvious reasons, but they come at a cheaper price as well. So
Mhm.
there'll always be a market for somebody who wants to buy a new iPhone, but there will always be a market for somebody who wants to buy a used iPhone. So that's the way I look at it.
All right. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. It was very, very insightful and I learned a lot. Uh, One thing which I wanted to, before I go and I forgot to ask you also, is what we see that, a lot of, how do you collect these used batteries? Because I live to a very giant dump yard, okay, and I see people, kids, and young people and all these people, manually scavenging all these batteries and they're trying to resell or sell it. So I wanted your opinion on this because it's a very toxic thing to do, right? It's a very bad thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So batteries come back to us from different channels. Battery OEMs, those companies that import cells and then make battery packs. Vehicle OEMs, so those who actually import the batteries, make the cars themselves, and then give us cars or bikes and give us back the cells and battery packs. E-waste aggregators, there are companies that aggregate this e-waste, dismantle it, and then we take the battery because we don't need the other parts. There's the informal sector, definitely, that we work with. And what you were just describing earlier is exactly that. Now, the informal sector doesn't work with precautions or safeties. And that is a huge part of the problem. And our solution, I mean, our focus has always been on, talking to our pollution control boards and the central one as well, Ministry of Environment, that how can we make sure that the informal sector either can be incorporated into the formal sector, or if not, can we have some kind of barrier for them? Because at the end of the day, it's endangering their lives and their health.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and I am sure like our conversation was very, very insightful. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Bhushan. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.